Hello everyone, my name is Tom, and it's the middle of September, and with the changing of seasons and summer heading out the door, I wanted to do a recap about the scents and smells that I have been wearing most this past season. And so, without further ado, here are the 4 fragrances that I wore this summer. So this summer, I have spent a lot of time in Florida, and with the high heat and high humidity, I really got to explore a lot of hot weather fragrances that really just don't get a lot of attention where I live in the UK, even over the summer months. And it's really been this year I have gotten back into fragrances after quite a few years of throwing them into the back of my cabinet, not really caring about them so much. I got very deep into collecting a bit obsessively. So now I'm returning back to the shelves, looking through some old bottles, and the one that I have worn the most this summer has been Pour Monsieur by Chanel. Now this is a Chypre fragrance, and that is French for Cyprus, so this is very green. It was originally formulated in 1955 by Henri Robert. I'm not very good at French pronunciations. My bottle is from 2002, so this is coming round to about 4 years old right now. And spraying this on skin. Immediately, there is this soft, bitter lemon. And I've looked at the notes. The lemon and the petitgrain both have a bitterness. And the neroli at the top really softens it out. And right away, under the citrus, this is very herbaceous. The spiciness that contributes, and I think melds really well with the bitter lemon. At the front of that, it is ginger, and there are those soft florals coming in. But the spiciness and the herbaceousness in the middle, it's very well rounded. It's not a fiery ginger. There's cardamom and coriander. And as it starts drying out, then you start getting some of the more woody notes. This is mainly cedar wood in the base. It's a very green cedar, and that comes from the light oak moss and vetiver. But it's not so deep and flat. There's basil in this too as part of those herbaceous middle notes, and I think that blends really well with the greenness of the vetiver and the oak moss. The oak moss is what makes this a really classic fragrance, in my opinion. A classic Chypre. What I noticed very quickly about Pour Monsieur is that it will turn into a skin scent very quickly, in my opinion. You get maybe an hour of real projection and changes on the skin. This is my experience. But very quickly it becomes a skin scent. This holds really nicely on clothes, and my girlfriend loves this. Everyone who's close to me really enjoys this. It's not overbearing, and it isn't in your face. It is very refined, and it is very understated. This is a classic for a reason, and it has stood the test of time. I really don't believe this is very dated in the way it smells either. And it's a very, very natural scent. I have a very sensitive nose, so there's a lot of notes, especially in modern perfumery, that I really can't bear to smell. It hurts my nose. But this here is so well rounded, so well balanced, and I've made a lot of good memories with this. So next on my list, and one of the mainstays of my summer evenings, has been Davidoff Zino. This is a oriental fragrance. It is a woody fragrance, and it has a lot of character. It's a very strong fragrance. This is from 1986, and my bottle is from 2020, so this is coming up to 6 years old soon. Just from the cap, this is very heavy on the patchouli. I made some notes about this earlier. As soon as you spray this, there is a very strong rosewood smell. It is woody and it is sweet too. And that has a beautiful top note with the citrus in it, and also there is lavender and clary sage undertones. So this does create a very herbaceous smell at the start, at least. It is barbershop-esque. It's a very warm barbershop smell at the start. And in it, it has a very soft floral mix of rose and geranium, but it's muted by the lily of the valley and the jasmine. The jasmine really settles down the rose, and I believe that the rose note in this is contributing to the sweetness of the rosewood. So we'll try a bit on the arm. Right off the bat, there is a lot of citrus. And that rosewood, very spicy, the rosewood, which mixes really well with the lavender, as I mentioned. The oriental base is extremely patchouli dominant, and there is a light vanilla and cedar. But even from the start, you can tell the base of this is going to be sandalwood. There is a slight creaminess to the bottom that mixes well with the patchouli. Overall, I really enjoy the way that this smells. I think this is a very unique, in today's culture, a very unique smell, but it is thin. It's quite a thin fragrance. I personally do not get good performance with this at all. It maybe lasts a few hours for me on my skin. Now, this is contrary to what I read. For some people, this works really well. And of course, it just depends on your skin type and how it works with you. But this being an 80s fragrance, you know it's not what it used to be. Now, I haven't smelled it before. Like older formulations, I haven't smelled any. But just by going from this bottle, when I smell it, it really is like there's just something missing. Like there's a puzzle piece here, which is not here. It is not the most put together. The patchouli is very heavy, and the warm florals really make this appealing to me on a summer night. This is one of my favourite fragrances to wear, but is it a masterwork of perfumery? I can't say it is, at least not anymore. So next up on my list was a gift from my girlfriend's father while I was in America. And here we have Tommy Bahama St. Barts. Now, St. Bart is an eau de cologne, unlike our last two fragrances, which were eau de toilette. This is not thin like an eau de cologne would be. Like you imagine something like Brut or some of these splash bottles, very classic splash bottles. They are thin and they don't last too long, but this really has a lot of power to it in the notes that are used. Now, this is from 2007. This bottle, I checked the batch number. This is from 2013. So this is over 12 years old, and it has spent 12 years in a bathroom, a shower room. And what I learnt is that you don't want to keep your fragrances in the same room as your bath and your shower because of the changes in humidity and temperature. But even in the Floridian heat, this has stayed very strong. The smell has not gone bad at all in that time. This is a very strong performer and it has quite a bright smell. But what I will say before I talk about the notes, this leads me to nose blindness. There are artificial notes in here which really do start to agitate my nose. When you first spray this, immediately there's this really zesty lime, and there is also the tequila smell, which makes this that very summery, hot weather fragrance, especially for somewhere like the Gulf or the Caribbean. It is boozy, it is tropical. And once the lime and the tequila start settling in together, there comes through this really strong oceanic smell, which I think stays for most of the fragrance. There is a light salt to this. This isn't like a saltwater smell. This is nothing like Dolce & Gabbana Light Blue. Light Blue has a really salty note to it. It has a really deep marine smell. This is like a cocktail by the beach. Now the note in this that really gives me problems is the guava. The guava note, the really sweet, fruity note in here. Underneath the tequila and the oceanic notes, it really gives this fragrance a lot of character, and I think it makes it extremely mass appealing because it's not feminine in the way that it's fruity. It does smell like a tropical island. But just for my nose being very sensitive, it does give me problems, and so I would go nose blind to this quite quickly, but this performs fantastically. It projects. Now I can't really say how long it lasts because I stopped smelling it. You know, I try to spray it on my clothes. I'm not really sure it's sticking to the clothes as well as it would to skin. The green freshness in this as well, it has a very strong body, and it settles down into this green musk. It says it has palm leaf as a smell. I don't think palm leaves smell like anything, to be honest, but it is a green musk, and it has a slight vanilla at the bottom to kind of warm up and round out the sweetness from the guava. But all the way through, this is very oceanic in the way that it smells. So this has been a very interesting wear, and I really enjoyed it overall, especially in the Florida heat. I'm not wearing this much now that I'm back home. Even when it was really hot over here, the humidity is not the same. This is perfect for those tropical climates. High heat, high humidity. This, and I think a lot of the other Tommy Bahamas, are going to be a very safe bet. And now, to finish off the list, is one of the best works of perfumery that I have come across, and it is Acqua di Parma Colonia Essenza. Now, Colonia Essenza is an eau de cologne as well, but it really does not perform like one. It has a very strong staying power. It has a very rich body, and out of the other Acqua di Parmas I've tried, Colonia Essenza, I think really brings what I want to the table. It has that Italian character, it has that punchiness, but it is so well balanced and it is so well crafted. Whenever you check out the notes for this, this will not show you a note breakdown like here's the top notes, the middle notes, and the bottom notes. They're all happening at once. And I had to make notes about this. But when I spray it, it goes through a journey, like immediately. It is taking you through everything. It's showing you what it has to offer. Immediately there is this sweet orange citrus. And I think there is a lot of rosemary here too. But it's spicy as well. There's cloves in this. A few seconds later, the citrus turns more bitter, and it has a brighter green bergamot feel. The neroli and the jasmine really start coming through here. There is a very fine balance between them. There is that sweetness of the jasmine, but the lightness of the neroli. And then starts coming the vetiver. and the petitgrain. There is rose and musk too, among some other flowers. And that rose really comes through the bergamot the most. They all burst out at once and they try to find their place together. And then after a few minutes it begins to meld and it begins to settle. And underneath it is this really warm sweetness that comes from the amber, I believe. It is a very balanced floral composition, and the greenness in this is an aromatic. It's very herbaceous too. This was released in 2010. My bottle is from 2019. There is patchouli in this, but it's not strong. I think it is really toned down by the vetiver and the oak moss in here. And those two chypre notes, I think, really make it a very classic fragrance. This is a lot like Pour Monsieur for me. It is the same genre. It's a very gentlemanly smell. It is a very European smell. And it has a beautiful Mediterranean flair. And it really does start settling down now. Everything starts coming together and it starts to get hard to pick out individual notes. There is this herbaceousness from the rosemary and the cloves. And that spiciness from the cloves contributes to the citrus, rounding it out, making it warm. And that warmth has a backbone in the amber. The greenness there from the patchouli and the vetiver. Freshness with the oak moss. And a really masculine character from the florals. If there is a masculine floral fragrance, this is it. And this is my favorite fragrance this summer. Have I worn it very much? Not really. This is more of a special occasion, one for me if I'm going out for a dinner or if I'm going out for a party. I enjoy this especially when I'm outside in the crisp evening air, when it's still warm and it's very fresh. This is when this really sings, when it's getting a little later into the evening and the air starts cooling down, but the sun still beaming onto your skin really helps this project. It has a decent bit of staying power. I wouldn't say it's the strongest performer. Now this is a modern day classic built on those timeless themes of the old-fashioned gentleman fragrances. Beautiful smell. Okay, so Acqua de Parma, Tommy Bahama, Davidoff, Zino, and Chanel Pour Monsieur. These are the 4 that I wore this summer. Thank you for watching, everyone. God bless.